Billy, buddy, welcome to the show, dude. You and I have had a couple engagements at some events, but we've never actually had a chance to sit down and have a chat. So this is good, man. Welcome.
Well, I appreciate it. I love my Aussie buddies. I love having friends with different accents. And to be honest, I'm really proud of how much you've grown in the last couple of years, watching you from afar in your broadcasting career. And obviously, we played against each other. Anytime I faced a lefty, it was going to be a guy like you. So it's, to be honest, like, when you get into baseball from all the different backgrounds, especially with where we are right now in today's society, the perspectives that we have from playing winter ball with my Latin American teammates to going overseas and playing in Japan, to being around African American players that have been my teammates for a long period of time, seeing our current landscape. And when you find I grew up in Santa Barbara. I grew up in a little coastal town, where surfboards and, basically everybody looks like me.
Me too.
And and then so you go from a college or high school or from Australia, and then all of a sudden you get tossed into a minor league system where now you're seeing Latin American players, and Dominicans and Venezuelans and guys from Caribbean that you've never met before, and boom, be teammates. And what's amazing about that for me is you don't know who's going to make it to the big leagues, right? Like, you probably had, I bet you put money on somebody that never even got close.
Man. Oh, absolutely. and the amount of times I've heard, dude, he's nasty, man. How is he not in the big leagues? He's like hovering in AAA, and there's something that just separates him. You know what I mean? What was it for you? What do you feel like separated you to get you to that next level?
There's a little bit of a give a bleep factor that I have. I wouldn't call it a chip on the shoulder. I'm sure I'm like you. I'm highly motivated. You tell me I can't do something, I'm going to do it. It's like, I think granted, you have to have a skill set. You have to learn from your skill set. You have to understand what your strengths and weaknesses are. I think I did that really well, but I think right place, right time. I mean, my very first call up, it was after multiple injuries. It wasn't like I was knocking down the door. I'm a 7th rounder, 4th outfielder. I got lucky, and I think part of it's luck.
Speaking of the luck thing, man, I remember Chris Bossio was pitcher of the Mariners. He was a pitching coach, and he does this big meeting with all the minor league pitchers, and he talked about luck. And I'm sitting there as an 18-year-old, I'm like, what's he talking about? Like, no, it's the dudes who are studs and the guys who – but it's amazing. Like, I literally had to have, like you said, a sequence of injuries to go, you down the list. Okay, you're left-handed. Boom, up you go. And then there I was. And it's one of those things, man, when you get there, don't screw it up. You get that couple of weeks to make an impression quick at that level, and you got to tear it up when you get up there for sure.
No question.
It's funny too, and you mentioned that, they don't give a bleep thing about you. And one thing, and we talked about when I first brought you in, we talked about the couple times the interactions we've had at these career summits, right? And it's an interesting time because you're emceeing those, and you do an amazing job, and you have that thing about you that the charismatic factor that if you're sitting in that room and you're just getting done trying to make that transition out of professional baseball, however many years you've made, if you're sitting in one of those seats, you're looking at you going, oh, well, look at the way he talks and this, that, and the other. That's why he got that gig. You know what I'm saying? Like, someone contacted you, and then you made a comment 2 years ago. I'll never forget it. You said that I'm also nice to people, right? I know how to work with people. And it's amazing because not only is it obviously, working your butt off, being competitive, right? But it's also having that ability to listen to people, give you instruction, take it in, and have that ability to work with people, man. I mean, talk to me about that, dude. Like, what do you mean by when you say being nice to people? Because it's a broad statement. It's like saying, go to the coffee shop, be nice to people. But it means a lot more than that, right?
But it is as simple as that, and I appreciate you bringing up that story because it's true. People have asked me so many times, how did you get your broadcasting gig? Was it because you were a baseball player? Was it because you talk? And I was like, maybe a little bit, like I said about making it to the big leagues. I had talent. It wasn't like I didn't. I've had the ability to speak to people, but the reason when I got offered the job, I asked that same question because I'm intuitive by nature or inquisitive by nature.
Yeah.
So I was like, why did you offer me this? And he said, honestly, Spilly, when you were a player, you were nice to the guys that were in that room. The camera ops, the A2s, the audio techs, all that. I just would say, hey, how are you? You doing all right today? That's it. That is legitimately it. And he said, the difference between when we look at a broadcaster, and you understand this now too, we have a broadcast group of 35 people at the stadium, from the different camera ops to our director, to our producer, to silent reporter, to the TDs. I mean, you name the people in the truck, and we're a team. And if the talent thinks they're above the team, and we've seen that in baseball all the time, right?
Yeah.
If the group is nice to each other, if you check in, you're like, hey, Ryan, you doing all right today? Like, for real, I actually care.
Yeah.
Your family okay?
Right.
What's going on in Australia? Are the fires, is your family safe? That's what it means to be nice.
Yeah.
Just like I'm sure you do when you go to a major league clubhouse. I do it all the time. I take a circle around the entire clubhouse just to say hi to people, just to check in, because I don't want people thinking I have an ulterior motive, because I don't.
Gotcha.
I just want you to know that I'm here. Like, I'm not anything special. I'm literally, I just care. If I get a chance to see you, I care. I'm going to pay attention. And that got me a job, for real.
You know what's funny about that is, like, I always notice this. If you had like these vendors coming in, someone from Nike come in, or someone, from like a glove company come in, for some reason, I don't know what it is. And I'm talking guys who'd never played that day in the big leagues. They come in and they sort of have this, the talent is above whoever's around them. For me, I grew up in Australia, so it was easy. If I had a Nike rep coming over to me, I was like, dude, like, you're coming to talk to me and you're going to give me this stuff and we're going to have a relationship. So it was natural for me. And I was like inquisitive to the sense of, how does all this work? Because I wanted to learn how that worked, like how to work with players but it's amazing. I guess it's easier said than done, because I saw a good majority of baseball players just make that fatal mistake where they felt like they had to sort of, put their guard up, like, or act big time in a sense, right?
That was like the one part, and you get this when you get in that room, you have these blinders on where you think you are. And I get it, because our careers, as long as we think they're going to be, they're really short. And the swings, I'm sure you felt the same way. That when I retired from baseball, is the best I slept in years, because all that pressure of trying to constantly perform, worrying about your job, worrying about getting a hit, worrying about all these things, it was gone. And so when you're in that place of constantly fighting and focusing on yourself, on your craft, it is, you become like you almost become a fake version of yourself, a blown up version. And I totally understand it when guys get to that point. But if you can remind them, like, to be cool, to say hi to people, like, you're not that great, or you are great, but don't forget, you're going to be a human for a lot longer than you are a baseball player. I don't know. I think people can redo their careers and still be laser focused to their routine while being a better person.
Absolutely, 100%, for sure. Also, too, looking at your career, right, and talk about that transition, and you get up and you're MC, and the event's awesome. The Players Association, put it on, and it's basically just an opportunity. If you're trying to make that, it's hard, man. It's hard to transition out of the game. It really is, because I think people, first of all, if you're a player, anticipate, oh, this organization is going to call me, bring me back as a scout. It just doesn't happen. They just don't. There's a pile this thick. I was talking to the farm director of the Mariners. He goes, dude, there's like a pile this thick of applications. That's just the way it goes. But for you, 2012, 2013, was there that fear factor of what the hell am I going to do? Or you basically knew you're on a path, this is what I want to do next?
I had no idea. I mean, I was playing in Japan, and my wife and I were not in a good place. I mean, I was gone for 6 months in Tokyo. My family was out there for 2, and I didn't see him. I became a FaceTime husband, FaceTime dad, and it was really, really difficult. To be honest, like, if I kept playing, if I wasn't playing in the States and I had to go back to Japan, I think my life would be totally different. I don't think my wife would have hung around for another year. So
how old were your kids when you were in Japan?
2 and 3. So my son was 2, my daughter was 3.
Yeah.
My daughter got like some weird rash over there. And what ended it for my wife in Japan, we loved it. We had such a great time when we were together. But my daughter had a rash, and she goes, and I'm in the minor league system at the time, so I don't have a translator.
Mm-hmm.
So she has to go. I'm at the field. She had to go to the doctor by herself with no car, on a bike with 2 kids. She shows the rash. The doctor gives her a prescription, speaks to her completely in Japanese, and hands her this prescription. And she's like, "What is this?" And he gives it to her again, and she's like, "What is it? I don't know what this is."
Yeah.
And we come home. She's trying to read it. It's it's Dr. Chicken Scratch, so she has no idea, and she loses it. She just broke down. And I told her, I was like, "Look, I don't know what it is. I bet you it's nothing. I bet you it's some sort of detergent rash or whatever.
Right.
But I understand it. Go home. Go home."
Yeah.
And they did. They went home. So
right.
My career path, I didn't know it at the time that it was over, and it was just happenstance. I get a phone call in the off season right at the beginning saying, "Hey, are you interested in being a broadcaster?" I'm like, "No, I'm a baseball player."
You're right. Yeah.
And then it started a conversation, and I literally, honestly, I sat on it for 4 months before I actually made my choice to move on. I worked out the entire off season like I was going to be a baseball player.
Right.
In January, I decided to move on.
Yeah, it's funny because for me, for example, the Mariners, everyone thought that I got all these phone calls. Hey, but I actually reached out to them and said, hey, a couple of years ago you mentioned this, and so I went up to Seattle for like a week. And at that point, because you're so naive, you think that, I smashed it. On one show, I did a pregame show and I smashed it. They're just going to call me. Then I went to spring training the next year because at that point I was still playing. Go to spring training the next year and I'm in the booth and everyone's telling me how good I am because it's easy just to say, oh yeah, you're good. Who knows if I was good or not? It's just one of those things that really doesn't, they're not going to say, oh, you sucked. And I'm sitting back expecting phone calls like, oh, hey, come join the team. But there's already people in place. Like, oh, yeah, they've already committed X amount of games and everything else. I had to basically beg to say, hey, look, can I just get 10 minutes? And who helped me is a guy you're on the radio on MLB Network Radio with is CJ Nikowski. Making that, having that, bleep it moment, right? We talked about that at that summit back in, when was that? December. But I contacted CJ and I said, hey man, help me out. And usually I'm expecting, hey, write a blog or do this stuff. And he said, come meet me. He was in LA. He said, come meet me. He sat me down. He goes, listen, man, this is how it works. You have to, and this is before I started begging. He goes, you have to contact him and beg him and say, I'll do this. I'll do it for free, blah, blah, blah. Do all these little things. And I was like, man, all right. But that was that moment. CJ helped me out a ton. I just kept calling and they said, oh, come down. And then that turned into, hey, come up for 5 days. And it snowballed from there. But I think people just, if you played baseball, you played in the big leagues, that you were just going to get all these opportunities. It's just not the way it works.
You got to bang down doors just like we did when we were athletes. I mean, it's the same thing. It's the same mentality too. If you're not willing to put the work and effort in or take feedback, it's like I say this about broadcasters or anybody doing this thing. As a baseball player, you would watch your film after every game and you would dissect what you did. Why wouldn't you do that if your career now is talking? Why wouldn't you do that if your career now is in front of a camera?
Yeah.
You don't care about your swing. You don't care. You're just going to go out there and just go. It doesn't work that way. So you have to have critical feedback, and it has to be from yourself as well.
Hey, talk about your first year. Your first year in the big leagues was 2005, right? But really 2006.
It was like an espresso shot. 2006 was the year. Yeah.
You came up and you played in one game in 2005?
Yeah.
What month of the year was that?
It was July. So I got one game in July, and that was it. And I was back down on my legs.
So no September call-up?
No, I was upset about that. I ended up playing winter ball just to prove to the Rockies organization that I was good.
That's got to be rough, dude.
I was upset. To be honest, I was really upset. And again, it's like you have to have a little chip. I had a humongous chip because I was like, dude, people don't think I'm that good. Yeah. So I got to keep playing. And that's what I did. I played winter ball even as a big leaguer. So I played winter ball for 5 years in Ciudad Obregón just to prove people that I could play.
Yeah, man, it's so tough. And you go for one game, and I've spoke to guys. I went up my first call up. I went up. I didn't pitch. I got sent back down, and I was like, "Oh, that's going to be my story, dude." I'm going to tell kids, "Hey, I got to the big leagues." They're like, "No, you didn't."
Like Rams.
Yeah, exactly. That's going to be me. But 2006, before we got on air, you were talking about a story with now your name, by the way, is hard to spell. I'm not going to lie. That's why it's easy. Just say, Spilly. Oh, do you know Spilly? If I'm texting someone, or yeah, Spilly said this, because I've got no chance of saying Ryan Spilborghs because I'll have to go Google, make sure I got it.
Don't even try it. So this is where it came to a head for me. I'm in New York, getting a chance to play, and it's during the Mets 1986 reunion. So it's 20 years later. So it's 2006, sometime in August. And we get our butt kicked by the Mets. And all the greats from that Mets team are there. Darryl Strawberry, Keith Hernandez is on the field, Ron Darling, right? Jesse Orozco, who's from Santa Barbara. And on Sunday, so after every single game at Chase Stadium's a sellout, Sunday we're getting our butt kicked again. And it's the day game. And I'm sitting on the top row, and Todd Helton's on deck. And this guy – great seats right behind us. He's wearing out Todd Helton. Hey, Helton, you're the biggest waste of money in National League. And just like nonstop New York accent.
Right.
And I'm sitting there and I'm like, hey, man, that's a great guy. Like, he's awesome for our game. And
how many months into the big, like, you were still a rookie there, right?
2 months into my career.
Man.
And so I'm standing next to Matt Holliday and Garrett Atkins, and they're like, "Oh, geez, here we go." And the Mets fans like, "What would you say? What's your name? Spilborghs? Spilborghs? You don't even bleep and play. Don't even shower. Go straight to the bleeping bus." And my teammates lose their freaking mind. Everyone's going like, "Oh, he's right. Like, you don't play. Don't even shower." So for the rest of the year, people call me Spilborghs, and I wasn't allowed to shower and just go straight to the bleeping bus.
And this is 2006 too, where if you're a rookie, you keep your mouth shut, dude. Like, you haven't sit on the couch in the clubhouse, right? That's how it was.
No, you're either in the batting cage, workout room, or you're sitting at your chair.
Dude, I used to sit and just wait till that kitchen got cleared out, and I'm like, I can go and get my scraps after that, because dude, that's how it is, man. I mean, it's different now though, right? Like, so speaking of like the getting on the rookie side of things, when you walk in the clubhouse, do you feel like it's different? I mean, I'm watching dudes with like 2 months hat on backwards, flicking through the channels. Is it like that with the Rockies?
Yeah, it is. And what's interesting, and you tell me. I believe that you have to earn stripes. Mm-hmm. I believe you have to put in the work and effort. Yeah. But I also look at it in a strange way, like where I'm trying to educate myself. I'm trying to understand, like we talked about at the very beginning, everybody comes from different backgrounds. Everybody's different. How you respect things, like how I respect something, is going to be probably a little more formal than somebody else.
Absolutely.
Just because of my upbringing.
Yeah.
And why not create an environment where if you're brash and you are outgoing and you made it to the big leagues, man, like you're in the big leagues. This is what you've been working your entire life for. You're not allowed to enjoy it until you put in a certain amount of time, like, so I get it. I get it. But
there was times like, really, do I have to stand out here in the cold? Just let me get on this plane, dude. Like, come on, because that bus is 20 minutes. That second bus 20 minutes away. Let's go. Like, seriously, that's a joke.
But here's the aspect too. If players are going to act a certain way and be given certain rights, wear their hat backwards, wear flip flops, regardless of the amount of service time, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
But you better know when a player that's been in that clubhouse for 10, 15 years, you better know his name.
Yeah.
You better know the people that have come before you. I want you to have a good understanding of the rich history of our game, right?
For sure, 100%.
Know who came before you.
Yeah.
Know who established these kind of rituals. And I'm not asking you to kiss anyone's feet. Just recognize that guys have done this so you can have those opportunities to wear your hat backwards.
Yeah, 100%. It's interesting. You mentioned winter ball earlier. I think what helped me out because you've got a melting pot of people from all over the world. I remember I was 18 years old, come over, and all the the Americans listen to was country music. I'm like, I hate country music. I can't stand it. I don't mind it now, but I'm like, get this off. But it slowly sort of, it grew on me a little bit. And then when I went and played winter ball, if I just threw in a little bit of effort to learn a little bit of Spanish, boom, I was in, man. I had buddies all over the place. And it's funny, Adrian Beltre, I played with him for a couple of years, and he would go and tell the young minor leaguers, he would say, guys, just learn English. It's just going to be so much easier to open those floodgates so everyone can be a part of a team. He was so big on that chemistry. It was awesome. When he left, man, a lot of things changed when he left, because he not that he was policing, but he just had that intuition to say that if you learn a couple of these words and then you learn a couple of their words, boom, all of the bus rides that you're on 50% of the time is so much easier.
I have been begging for organizationally, like if I ever had a chance to run operations, I'm teaching all my players Spanish, and I'm teaching my Spanish players English. I don't think it's fair that a Spanish-born player comes to the States and they have to learn English, where you've been born in the States and you don't have to learn their language.
Yeah, that's
not cool. Like, if I want to be a good teammate, to your point, I'm going to learn your language. I want to be able to say, hi, how are you? Yeah. What's going on? I want to get past the traditional formalities of hello and goodbye. I want to know, like, your family okay? Your wife okay? How's your daughter? That's the part where you want to really bring people together. Again, going back against the backdrop of what's going on in our world, learn how to speak to each other. Put some effort to learn someone else's language. That's the nicest thing you can ever do to show respect, is that I'm going to put time and effort so I can talk to you.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of elephant in the room, relationship between the owners and the players right now. What's your take on everything that's going on?
I feel like we're miles apart. I feel like the CBA is being negotiated a year too soon. This should be treated as a pandemic, because that's exactly what it is. We're having record numbers of unemployment. GDP numbers are down at Great Depression numbers. We're in the midst of just we're in a bad place with the economy, with mental health, everything across the board. And we're watching an industry argue semantics. We're watching an industry argue about finances that are irrelevant at this time right now. Defer it. Have this argument a year from now. What's going on right now is going to have a ripple effect for multiple years. For somebody to say that we're not going to see any repercussions next year, you're out of your mind. To me, it's if health and wellness is truly your number one, condition, then focus on that. If that's resolved, the finances, they always take care of themselves. I get risk. You and I get this. Like, your career could end like that. And so owners will be owners longer than players will be players. So that's the argument, right? And so if you are trying to push this game forward for the betterment of the game, you figure out a way to play. And this is not a negotiation for CBA. And that's my stance has always been. But, based on history, the players don't believe the owners, plain and simple. Nobody does.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think there's got to be a level of transparency here from on both sides. Even, you know what, this is a time where you said it's so unique. It's not a CBA time whatsoever. It's a time where it's like, all right, guys, we're in a tough spot. We both know it. Let's be transparent. You show me exactly, like, open up those books to the owners and say, all right, how much money are we going to lose, and how do you forecast this? You guys are obviously smart businessmen. You're obviously successful people. You can forecast this and that. Show me your plan. Show me how your budget looks, and we'll tell you where we're coming from, and just team up somehow, as opposed to the us against you and the whole button heads, because it is absolutely not the time. But you're right, man. Just the ripple effect and everything that's attached to baseball, including you and me. I mean, you and me are not. We're not. I mean, you're doing radio right now, but you can't do any TV pre and post like you usually would. There's so many things attached to it. You know what I mean? So it's a crazy time.
It's a crazy time. You're right. Like the last little thing, this is not an argument for players and owners. Like we are in the argument. You and I, our livelihood depends on it. Grounds crews depend on it. Clubbies depend on it. Scouts, amateur scouts, businesses, bars, restaurants,
parking lots.
I mean, you name it, right? Yeah. Freelancers. It's not 750 players versus 30 owners. Yeah. This is an industry that impacts tens of thousands of workers, seasonal workers, and people like ourselves.
Hey, on a lighter note, dude, because you're a pretty upbeat guy. When I'm around you, the times we've been at those career summits and watching you do your thing, I need to get upbeat here. What the biggest? Give me a couple of highlights. The biggest highlight in your career.
Baseball career was watching Todd Helton hit a home run September 18th, 2007. That's my biggest highlight, is watching somebody else hit a home run. Just because of what that guy meant to me. He was a great mentor and that team. It was amazing.
You guys still stay in touch?
Yeah, I sent him a text message the other day. That reminds me, like, I got to do better about staying in touch with teammates.
Oh yeah, 100%. All right, broadcasting. You've talked about Vin Scully before. Is that your highlight? What do you? Tell us that story, and then if that's your highlight, otherwise give me something else.
Okay. So, I grew up in Southern California. The voices in my head as a broadcaster now, I hear Vin Scully and Chick Hearns. Chick Hearns was the basketball broadcaster for a bunch of years for the Lakers, and getting a chance to meet Vin Scully is a true pleasure as a broadcaster. And the very first time I played at Dodger Stadium, I asked my parents to record the game, and they were like, "Why? You played at Dodger Stadium before?" And I go, "It's not because I'm playing at Dodger Stadium. It's because I want to hear Vin Scully." Yeah. And so Vin, I listened back, and Vin's like, "Here comes Ryan Spilborghs, a 25-year-old from UC Santa Barbara. Went to Santa Barbara, which is about 90 miles north, and played with Skip Schumacher." And it was really cool to hear him say that. And like 5 years later, I catch myself on a replay, and I was like, Ryan Spilborghs from 90 miles north of LA from UC Santa Barbara, teammate with Skip Schumacher. I was like, "You're saying the same thing, Vin." But I had a chance to interview him, and he gave me some of the best life advice ever. And he goes, "You know what you have that nobody else has?" I was like, "No, I don't." And he goes, the same thing I'm going to tell you is what Red Barber told me after he got the job with the Brooklyn Dodgers. He says, "What you have that nobody else has is yourself. You're you. Don't ever try to be someone else you're not. Don't ever try to listen or take parts of other people to incorporate it into you. Tell the story the way you would tell it. Rely on your experiences." And it was fascinating because, I think in our minds, we want to be somebody. You might want to be.
Well, isn't that tough to do sometimes, though? Because I know from broadcasting, for me, I want to be taken seriously, and it's so stupid. Because I've had, people say, "Hey, be yourself," and Eric Burns says, "Hey, that Aussie accent," but I'm like, I need to hide the Aussie accent because I want to sound pro. You know what I'm saying? And I know deep down that that's ridiculous, but you want to sound like you belong in a sense. And then you just fall straight into that same. You look like everyone else, and I can't afford to do that because I haven't played 20 years in the big leagues. You know what I mean? No one's going to take me seriously if I just sound like everyone else. Isn't that a battle though? To early on, you obviously now you're pretty established and you do your thing and dance around on set. There's a clip of you I remember kept popping up because we get all your feeds.
Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah, I think there's a. That's why broadcasters. One last little part on Vin Scully, and then I got to get going.
Yeah.
I asked him about the 1988 call, the home run, the year that has been so improbable. The Dodgers have done the impossible, right? Like it's an incredible line.
Yep.
And I asked Vin, I said, "How did you come up with that?" And he said, "Ryan, that took me 30 years." Wow. So it's such a great, it's a great perspective to understand that, you're going to get better. Being a broadcaster is a craft. It's not a talent. Mm-hmm. We get better. It's just like anything else. 10,000 hours, our voices will sound different. We will probably lose some of our crutch words. We might expand as we read more, as we watch more games. We understand timing. We understand how the cadence of another person talking to you is. And so you're going to get better as long as you do it.
Yeah.
And maintaining who you are, I think, is the most important, critical part.
Oh, that's awesome, man. I mean, yeah, he's a guy that just has that art form. But hey, look, I know you got to get going. I appreciate you squeezing me in, champion. Isn't it amazing? I feel like and you probably can agree with this. You just just the busy work that goes on, even when because you think, oh, I'm going to be quarantined. I got nothing to do. I just watch Netflix all day. All of a sudden, boom, the workload goes through the roof because you got all these different things you got to manage, right?
Yeah, it's been crazy. It's been crazy. But I appreciate this time. This thing was awesome. I'm looking forward to seeing the podcast pop out.
Sounds good. Awesome, man. Appreciate it, buddy.
See you, buddy.